I want to take this moment to just welcome you all to the Path to Research Advocacy, where we explore the journeys of change makers who dedicate their voices and efforts to meaningful causes. Happy Till Tuesday, everyone. My name is Tiffani Fields, and I'm a two-time ovarian cancer survivor and an advocate leader. I am going to be your host for today's discussion, as I stated, which will be recorded. So today we have the honor of speaking with Sachia Stonefeld Powell to learn about her advocacy journey and the challenges she's overcome, along with the wisdom she can share with aspiring advocates. For the structure for today, we'll start with about 30 minutes of this live discussion, and then it'll be followed up with a live question and answer. And the last thing we'll have is a survey for some feedback on what you think about the webinar for today and what you'd like to see in the future. So please don't leave without filling out that survey for us. Okay? So welcome, Sasha. Can you share with us a little bit about your background and journey? What's inspired you to become an advocate?
Sure, absolutely. Thank you, Tiffani. So I am also a two-time ovarian cancer survivor, now going on 8+ years. I am also a mom, I'm a lawyer, I'm a friend, I'm a sister. I'm a normal human being, basically. And I became a research advocate about 7 years ago in ovarian cancer research support. And about 3 years ago, I was one of the co-founders of the Powell-Drescher Ovarian Cancer Research Foundation. In terms of what motivated me, there were, I would say, two things that happened right when I finished treatment that really propelled me forward. And one of the things was that I finished treatment and I felt compelled to do something, but I didn't know what to do. There isn't really anything clearly to be done then. So I had this sort of longing to fill. And the second thing that happened was I met a scientist friend, and she kind of offhandedly mentioned that many scientists will never meet the beneficiary of their career long work.
Wow.
And I was stunned. Like I couldn't believe that you could work for a whole career and never sort of meet the person you're trying to help. And so I decided right then that I wanted to meet the scientists. And even if all I did was to say thank you to them and to give a face of a normal person who they're trying to help.
That's so good. And I think a lot of people can relate to that too. Thank you. So, in that same vein, advocacy takes many different forms. How did you determine your specific path?
Well, first of all, I think, there's advocacy roles that have strengths that I don't have or would require strengths that I don't have. For example, an important part of advocacy can be patient support. I'll be honest, my bedside manner is terrible. Nobody would want me to support them when they're going through their journey. So that takes that off the table, right? Um,
Sure.
but likewise, I'm a very curious person. I like to learn new things, and I have no background at all in medicine or science. Truthfully, I almost failed high school biology. And so that whole area of biomedical research was brand new. It was a world I'd only heard of. And so I was kind of fascinated by it. And that's what really drew me in that direction. And I will say that, going back to the kind of the gratitude for the scientists, my own oncologist is a clinician researcher. And so what that really means is he has two full-time jobs. He's in the clinic and he's a researcher. And I kept thinking about him. His vision or his image was always kind of in the front of my mind about, how do you say thank you to somebody like that? So
That's good. Okay. What were some of the biggest challenges you faced when you first started advocating?
um really figuring out where to go to start, and also what I actually brought to the process. I live in Seattle. We have a lot of incredible biomedical research here, Fred Hutch, for example. But I can't just go knock on the door at Fred Hutch and say, "Hi, I understand you do research here. You must do ovarian cancer research. Can I help you?" Like they're just going to laugh at me, right?
Yeah.
And likewise, I thought I could bring something important to research, but I wasn't actually sure what I brought that was important. I thought that my experience and my story might be helpful, but I wasn't exactly sure how it would be used. And so I think trying to overcome those two hurdles to figure out how logistically to get started and what I brought, and in a sense, also show the scientists what I bring. I think scientists in general are very welcoming of us, but even they don't know all of the facets that we can bring to help them with their work.
Mm. Yeah. I think that that's a really good point about understanding what you can contribute or even where to start. So thank you for sharing that as well. A lot of people have concerns about getting involved in research advocacy. They don't even know that it's something that they can do. What do you think prevents people from getting involved in research advocacy? And what are some ways to overcome or remove those barriers?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think lack of knowledge is one. We might be interested. We don't know where to start. We don't know who to call. We don't know where to go. We don't know what we bring. And truthfully, the other one is fear. I think many of us, at least initially, think, well, if I don't have a scientific background and I'm going to go talk to all these people and they have all those degrees after their name, like what could I possibly tell them that they don't know? And so I think overcoming that fear that we don't have anything to offer is an important step. And, in fact, we have a lot to offer because those scientists are actually brilliant, but they've never had our experience. And I hope none of them ever do. So we bring that experience to really bolster their work and provide them with information that they couldn't have learned in school or on the job.
Yeah. Well, what do you think are the key elements of or for a person who wants to be involved in research advocacy or to become a research advocate?
I think, well, the most important thing is your story, whatever your story is. And you can be involved in advocacy. You don't have to have been the patient. You could be a caregiver, you could be a previvor, you could be a lot of things, but your personal connection to the disease, I think, is incredibly important. It's vulnerable. So you have to be prepared to be vulnerable sometimes and share that personal experience and relive something that for most of us anyway was not pleasant, not something you want to relive all the time. I think the other thing that's really important is communication. Whether you're a good communicator in an oral form or a written form doesn't really matter, but you have to be able to express your information, share that information with other people, and not be afraid to speak up, even when you are maybe the only non scientist in the group.
Yeah. I like what you said because it sounds like you have to kind of do some introspective work, look at yourself, one, recognize that you bring value to the table, whatever table it may be, and identifying maybe your strengths.
Yeah.
And
I'm sorry. I would also add too, I think you also need to be inquisitive and take a kind of a collaborative approach to everything because you can't think of it as coming in and directing their work. You're not doing that. You are coming in to learn from them and to see where you fit into whatever their individual project is.
okay. How do you balance the storytelling elements of advocacy with like actionable solutions in your effort?
So your story is, as I said, what is really, really important and what really matters. You're not the same advocate without that story, but I do think that under different circumstances, your entire story may not be necessarily helpful. And in fact, I think in many situations, a less is more approach is actually beneficial. So
Mm.
when I tell my story, I try to be selective and really share the parts that I think are going to be most impactful in the circumstance or for the person. Um, so I think that's how I balance that. I don't share the entire thing every time. I try to be selective and then hope that the scientists, having heard only a slice or several slices of it, really have that impact and take that forward.
Okay, okay. A lot of times, people have questions about like, what's the outcome here? What is the point of it all? So, how do you measure the impact of your advocacy efforts?
I would say it's challenging because my ultimate impact, I hope, it may be years or decades in the future, and I may not know about it ever. I sometimes think of it like raising a child. You tell your kid to put their napkin in their lap at dinner 4,027 times. And at some point, when they're 37 years old at a business meeting, they put their napkin in their lap. You may never know that happened, but you are the cause, right? That's the effect of your work. So I think of it that way. Something is going to happen out there in the future, and I may never know that I played a role years before. Um, More immediately, and this may sound odd, but when I speak to scientists, especially to groups, I know I've made an impact if my audience is in tears at the end. It means they have heard what I said. It means I got through to them. And more importantly, they're going to remember it when they move on.
Okay, that's good. So I just want to pause for a quick moment, Sasha, and tell the guests in the audience if you all have any questions, if anything in our discussion brings up something for you and you have questions, please don't hesitate to leave those questions in the chat. Okay? Thank you. So, Sasha, can you tell us a little bit more about your organization and how has Powell-Drescher supported survivors in becoming involved in research advocacy?
Yeah, absolutely. So when I first started in research advocacy, as I said, it was not a clear path forward. I didn't know really where to go. And I kind of looked around to see if there were organizations that did what I was trying to do. And I didn't find any, at least that were good fits for me. So ultimately, a group of us created what I wish I had back then. And we're only 3 years old, so we're really just starting out. But at this point, we are supporting survivors who want to be involved in ovarian cancer research advocacy. And I should say, not just limited to survivors, but really anybody who wants to advocate. And we do it in a couple of ways. We sponsor advocates to attend scientific conferences where they not only attend, but actually play a role in the conference. We don't want someone to sit in the audience. We want them to be up on the stage or presenting a poster or doing something that really engages with the scientists. We make sure that the person has the training that they need so they feel comfortable. They don't have that fear. They know what they're going to do. They have some mentorship so that it's a pleasant and successful experience for them. Behind the scenes, we also do connecting scientists and survivors when we are aware of a need of maybe a scientist or a group of scientists who really want to have an advocate, but like we don't necessarily know where to go to find scientists. They also don't know where necessarily to come to find us if they are not in a patient facing position.
Right.
So we make that connection for them. If they reach out and say, hey, I'm looking for somebody or some people, we're happy to connect them. And we have plans for the future that will be more support for the advocates and also more support for scientists. So stay tuned. Big things are going to happen.
That's great. I have two questions on separate questions. Can you tell the audience if there's anyone that doesn't know what is a previvor?
Someone who has a genetic condition where they are have a higher risk of getting ovarian cancer, but do not yet have the disease. Hopefully, don't ever have the disease.
Mhm. I think that's really interesting and beneficial to mention the that people who are involved with research advocacy are not just, I don't want to say just, but it's not only uh, survivors. Sometimes there's family members, supporters, um, doctors, medical professionals, and such. So thank you for
Absolutely.
mentioning that as well.
Yeah, we have actually a very broad definition of survivor and who we will support in advocacy. And I can't quote it to you right now, but it is previvors, it is patients, it is survivors, it is caregivers. It's very broad.
Yeah. Okay. What advice would you give to a survivor who's hesitant about taking on an advocacy role?
I would say if you can, try to talk to someone who has done what you're interested in or at least something similar and learn about their experience and how they felt about it, what they liked or disliked about it. And then I would say, think about what motivates you. What is it that you're interested in about this? What is pulling you towards it? And pursue even just one little step toward that. When I first was interested, as I said, I was a little afraid maybe of scientists. And so I went to a scientific conference.
Mm.
And my whole goal was not to understand the science because I knew I wouldn't. My goal was just to see what it felt like to be there. And it was overwhelming. And I could not tell you any of the science that was presented, but I can tell you the takeaway I had, which was okay, these are normal people like me. Okay, I can work with them. This is going to be okay.
Mhm.
So I would say take a tiny step, dip your toe in and see how it feels, see where it
Sure.
takes you.
Yeah, I love that. I think it's funny as I'm listening to you, I think about my background is in the military, and oftentimes I would tell my soldiers talking about other things, but I encourage people. Even if you dip your toe, even if that water feels a little too cold, keep going. Maybe one area is not a good fit. Try something else. Don't give up though.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay, great. So we're kind of close to about the halfway point. I want to go ahead and let's open the floor for discussion. Does anyone have a personal connection to research advocacy or a question about getting started with it? What are your thoughts or questions after hearing our discussion? Please feel free to add your questions in the chat. Okay, let's see here. Sasha, can you tell us, oh, this is a good one. Many advocates face burnout at times. And that can look different for each person. How do you sustain your passion and energy to keep going?
Now, that's a really good question because burnout is a real problem. I think it's important to balance your life. And whether that means you do a little bit of advocacy regularly, but you keep it at a certain level that's comfortable for you, or whether it's you go full on for a little bit and then step back and take a break. I think the balance is what's important. You have to make sure that you are not just an ovarian cancer advocate. You are also whatever all your other roles are. The beautiful thing is that when you need to take that step away, whether it's for a couple of months, maybe it's for a couple of years, you can always come back. The door doesn't close. So just keep your own healthy balance, whatever works right for you. And I would also say try to find energy in your research advocacy, because frequently when I feel like I'm hitting a wall and I'm starting to get burned out and tired, something will happen in the advocacy world that completely re-energizes me. And
Mm.
so if you can find those things too, that will help keep you going.
Yeah, I like that. Listen, I'm taking notes too. Because that's true, right? As people who are facing whatever our cancer journey looks like, we have to take care of ourselves. And I love that you said that door never closes. Mm. Okay, what advice do you have for individuals who want to get involved but also feel overwhelmed?
Think about what your motivation is. What's the interest? What's the pull for you? And then try a small step in that direction and see how it feels. Like you said, if the water is a little too cold, keep going, but maybe take a step in a slightly warmer direction. But find, one or two small things you can dabble in and see how it fits.
Yeah, I like that. What I heard when you said this too is to know your why and to keep that kind of at the forefront of your thoughts. Um, Sometimes what I do, I'll put a little sign on my mirror that I can always look at to keep, kind of as my focus, and that helps out a lot. Uh, there's something else that you mentioned earlier about the different aspects of advocacy and everybody finding kind of your own fit. So I just wanted to say thank you for kind of mentioning that it's not just a one way that research advocacy can be done. Okay, so let's see here. We have another question. You mentioned you raised an important point earlier that despite our desire to be research advocates, sometimes we aren't in a place to relive our experiences with cancer. Mm. One facet of being a research advocate then might be to help researchers understand that our participation may wax and wane as our emotional experience of cancer evolves. How do we effectively set realistic expectations with ourselves and the scientists we work with? Mm.
It's an excellent question. I think first is to have an introspection of yourself and think about how, and this is a little tougher if you're closer to your journey, a little easier as you get farther away. Um, how do you feel like the foreseeable future is going to go? How are you going to feel in a week, in a month? And then be clear about that with the scientists and yourself, and to say, okay, I predict that I can help you with this year-long project because I predict that I can do that. But if it turns out during that project that you have a period of time when you're just not there for it, let them know that you need to maybe take a little step back or take a break or maybe delay something a little bit. I think communication is going to be the key.
Mm. Thank you. Okay, I have another question for you. How do you excuse me, difficult conversations, especially when advocating for sensitive issues? And I mean, you can choose how you answer this one, whether, because the difficult question, I mean, difficult conversations could be with family, friends, and, well, we're talking about research advocacy, sorry.
Yeah. I'm looking quickly. I made notes and I have to find where my notes went. Yeah, I mean, as you pointed out, a conversation can be difficult for any number of reasons. It could be that you don't think the listener is actually listening to you. It could be that you're sharing information that's deeply personal. There are a number of reasons. So I think the easiest way for me to advocate and to navigate those conversations is to think about what my end goal is. What is my goal in sharing with this person? And am I accomplishing it? And if I'm not, for any reason, let's say they're not listening to me or whatever, is to stop. You can stop the conversation when you need to. You can also take a break from it and say, this is as much as I can share right now. I'm willing to share more later. I'll get back to you.
Mm, that's good. We have a comment, and this this guest, I don't see a name, but they shared, I am a primary care MD and have worked in microbiology PhD program. I have no personal experience with ovarian cancer, but have had patients and a friend with the disease. I am sort of more like the scientist and would mainly bring clinical perspective. Yeah. Hmm.
But incredibly important. One of the real focuses of the Powell-Drescher Foundation is that we are collaborative. And that means that we support the scientists and the clinicians, we support the survivor and the advocate, and we want to get those two groups of people talking together. And so, no matter what your background is, what perspective you bring it to the conversation, and it's important.
Okay, that's good. All right. Is there anyone else that has a question for Sasha that hasn't posted in the chat or that wants to share? I just want to take a moment to pause in case we missed
Yes.
anyone.
Tiffany, this is Sarah Green.
Hi, Sarah.
Hi. Hi. It's nice to be with you all. And hi, Sasha. Hi, everybody. It's an off-camera Tuesday, so I apologize on that count. But, I think one of the interesting challenges, and I'm kind of riffing on what's in the chat where people are saying, that they are interested um, research advocacy, et cetera. But I think some of it too is the matchmaking that needs to happen in a more effective way where if I'm a research advocate and I'm new to this, how do I find, a study that is, I guess, kind of fits with where I think I can contribute, or maybe I want to work more on, community centered projects versus more like clinical trials. So are you aware of, or is anybody aware of resources that can help kind of do the matchmaking for research advocates and clinical researchers? Thanks.
So what we're doing right now is I'm going to use the term manually matching. When people contact us, so if let's say a scientist reaches out to me and says, hey, I have a need for somebody. And so I'll ask them, what's your need? What can be the best fit for you? And then I go looking for that person. And it's incredibly time consuming, I will admit. But right now, it's all that I am aware of. Our hope, though, is we have some plans for the future where we're going to have that be. It will never be fully automated because there's so many nuances involved, but that will be slightly more automated so that it's a little smoother and not as much of a time commitment for us for each individual match. But yeah, that's an excellent question.
Thank you, Sarah. All right. Is there anyone else that has a question for Sasha? And if you don't feel comfortable coming off of your or unmuting, feel free to place your question in the chat. Let's see. Okay. Sasha, are there specific organizations, resources, or communities you'd recommend for new advocates?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, as I said, when I started out, I did not find any or many that were a good fit. And so, of course, my first answer is going to be Powell-Drescher, is a great resource for starting out your advocacy. And just reach out to us, send us an email, and someone will connect with you, and we can help you get started and find your fit. Now, I will say that since I've been involved in research advocacy, I've discovered there are some organizations, none of them were a great fit for me and exactly what I wanted, but they are amazing organizations and they might be the right fit for somebody else. And again, if you want to reach out to us, we can help you find those. There are not so many, I couldn't even mention them right now. But there are, large organizations and small ones. There are organizations focused exclusively on ovarian cancer and some that are pan cancer. In other words, it doesn't matter what type of cancer it is. And so we can help you find your fit so that you don't have to go through kind of what I did and reinvent the wheel. We hope your fit is with us, but we're happy to help you find a better fit if it's elsewhere.
Thank you. And then Deborah commented in the chat, AACR has a wonderful program called Scientists and Survivor Program that helps train patient advocates. I just want to also mention too, I appreciate the Powell-Drescher Foundation too, because, I've been able to connect and learn a lot from you all as well. So I'm grateful for that opportunity and for the people I get to work with. So.
Yeah,
Mhm.
and we do. We actually we're sending Marcia here in the next week or two, I think it is, going to AACR to participate in that program. So we are involved in the AACR's Scientist Survivor program. We
Okay.
also have, I'll give you a little sneak peek. We have some big collaborations coming with some other ovarian cancer focused organizations in the near future. I can't announce them yet, but I'm really excited.
Well, I think you kind of answered my next question. I was going to ask you what's next for your advocacy work and how people can support, but I think you kind of covered that.
Yeah, I think we're continuing to build. As I said, we're only 3 years old. We are continuing to build Powell-Drescher. We are hoping to implement some additional programs along the lines of our mission. We are just, money and bandwidth of people power is what's always needed to get those programs up and running. But we also have some programs on the horizon where we will be collaborating with other organizations to really amplify our power and their power to reach bigger audiences and do bigger things. So that's very exciting too.
Yeah, you kind of hit the nail on the head when you mentioned the kind of the traits that an potential advocate should have. And collaboration is key. And, I just want to also add too, because, we're human, things aren't always perfect. If there is a challenge, I work on working through challenges with people. And if there's barriers, I also want to mention if you're someone who may have a language barrier, or a physical, mental, or other ability difference, don't let that stop you.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. We need every voice out there.
yeah. So, Sasha, I want to say thank you so much for your time, your experience and insight, everything that you shared today. This has really been great. I'll do one more call for questions. If anyone else has a question, feel free to unmute or comment in the chat. Raise your hand. I want to also thank our behind the scenes crews, the crew that's been helping us with moderation and in the chat and just management of Zoom. So Susan and Kristen, thank you for your help. And I want you all to know that this isn't the end. This is just the beginning for our web series here. To learn more about the Powell-Drescher Foundation, please visit the link in the chat. And we'll also drop the link to our survey. So please don't leave without completing the survey. We'd love to have your feedback and just kind of learn a little bit from you, what you'd like to see in the future. If there are questions maybe you weren't comfortable asking publicly or in the chat, and that's fine. Feel free to put that on the feedback if you can. Just want to double check and see if I see anything else.
We got one more. I can read it if you'd like me to.
Sure, could you? I don't.
Yeah. In your experience working with scientists, what are some things you have encountered that you would like them to know to make it easier for advocates to engage?
Hmm.
That's an excellent question. I would like them to know that this is not easy. I think they know that, but I think having it reiterated is important. It's not easy because we have to relive things we'd rather never have experienced. It's not easy because it requires time and we all lead busy lives doing other things. It's not easy because frequently we have to spend money to, for example, attend a meeting, and many of them have all of that covered by their institutions. And so they don't necessarily think about the cost to us. Um, and I think I would also want them to know or remind them that we want to do this. We want to be helpful. We want to know from them how we can be most helpful in their particular project or, with them personally. Um, yeah. I think also if they can communicate with us about about the details about their project. For example, if you want me to review a lay abstract, for example, okay, what kind of a time frame are you on? Is this an urgent thing? In which case I may have to decline. Is it something that you've given me plenty of notice about and I'm happy to look at it? Um, how much time commitment are you expecting from me as your project? It's a year-long project, but does that mean I need to meet with you weekly? Am I doing something for you monthly? Is it quarterly? What are you asking of me? um, Remembering that communication is critical to all relationships, and in particular communication with us has to be respectful, but it also has to be, um, you have to be aware that while you as a scientist may talk about, for example, mortality rates all the time, it's part of your job, it's part of what you're focused on. You have to be sensitive to the fact that when you're talking about a mortality rate, you're talking about my mortality. And so when you talk to me about that, be respectful in how you do that.
Okay, that's good. Thank you. Okay, last call. Are there any other questions?
I just wanted to make a comment about remembering to have everyone reach out to their senators and Congress people because of the cuts in research funding. I think we still have to stay on top of letting them know that that research funding is critical to labs like Kristen's, and we can't let go of that because the funding just in the DoD was cut by 67% for ovarian cancer. And that's something that we can easily do as research advocates, is send an email to your own congressmen and senators.
Yeah, I
Absolutely.
think that's a good point that, like I said, just dipping your toe in. Research advocacy doesn't necessarily mean falling off the high dive into the deep end. There are lots of little steps that we can do that don't take a big time commitment, don't necessarily need a lot of educating about. Just take that step and see how it fits.
That's good. Okay. I don't see any other questions. I have one more question for you, Sasha. And before I ask that question, I want you all to know that we will continue this series. And our next scheduled path to research advocacy is scheduled for June 24th. And you all will receive information via email from us. Anyone who registered, you'll receive that information and the guest and any other details that will come very soon. Okay?
We
Now,
also will put it out on social media frequently.
okay, great.
So
All right.
follow us.
Yes. So as our powerful and inspiring conversation comes to a close, Sasha, are there any parting words of wisdom, hope, encouragement, or motivation that you'd like to share with the audience, the ovarian cancer community as a whole, or the broader advocacy community, excuse me?
I would say, don't forget that science is moving forward. It's slower than we would like, always. It is never linear. In other words, it does not go in a straight direction. It goes up and it has a little hiccup, and it goes up and but it's moving forward. And we can lend our voices to help accelerate that forward motion. And that's really powerful. And so that's what I hope you will find your comfortable way to do, because we're going to get there together.
Yes, I love that. Thank you, Sasha. I'm going to give you a hand.
Thank
And
you so
everyone
much.
else is too. I see others clapping as well. Thank you so much. And
Thank
so,
you.
to our guests, I also want to say thank you for joining us today on the path to research advocacy. Remember that advocacy doesn't end with conversation, it begins with action. If today's discussion has inspired you or encouraged you in any way, please take that next step. And whether it's signing up for a research advocacy program or sharing your story in written or verbal form or connecting with an organization that supports survivors, your voice matters. And that's important. And I want you to never forget that. Sometimes that sounds cheesy, but it's so very true. And your unique voice matters. So
Absolutely.
we're also going to drop that Powell-Drescher link to their website, and let's just continue to make positive impact together. Thank you so much for
Good.
joining us today.
Thank you, everyone. This has been wonderful. Thank you, Tiffani.
Ah, you're welcome. Thank you. All right. Don't forget the link to the survey is in the chat. Please don't forget to complete that. And then once it's all done, feel free. You can log off, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.
Thank you all.